Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Facebook has announced what it says is a major change to its news feed, prioritising posts from family and friends over those from media organisations and businesses. Our media editor, Am Incorrigible, reports.
Mark Zuckerberg's social network has become one of the biggest distributors of news in history. Today the company went back to its social roots. He said he wants to make sure the time we all spend on Facebook is time well spent.
You are the property of Bancroft.
Facebook's founder admits users are being fed a heavy diet of news and adverts
in the morning,
together with the more personal posts from friends and family. In Bristol today, many young Facebook users agreed.
It's quite clogged up with adverts for like shopping and baby things at the moment, and stuff that I search on Google. So yeah, I think it would be a lot better if it was just based around friends and family without any adverts.
Just feeling like I'm being sold to the whole time, and people are making assumptions about my opinions, my tastes, the things I'm interested in.
Zuckerberg says, "I'm changing the goal from helping you find relevant content to helping you have more meaningful social interactions. That means less news and more friends and family."
To order from 1-800-Flowers.
This is the biggest change to Facebook for many years. It follows controversy over the promotion of fake news, with fears the platform has been used by foreign powers to subvert democracy. Today's changes aren't driven by those concerns over disinformation, but they're clearly an attempt to restore trust in a global brand, and the impact on our news ecosystem could be huge. Mark Zuckerberg clearly accepts that not all news is of equal value, but his changes could seriously damage some reputable news providers that have come to rely on his platform for both eyeballs and income.
The elephant in the room is really fake news and how they're trying to clean up the timelines. And the fear for publishers like us is that the baby gets thrown out with the bathwater and we lose the really important real journalism along with the fake news that they're trying to get rid of.
Google is often described as part of a duopoly that is swallowing the advertising and news industries together with Facebook.
We spent the best part of 2 decades.
Today, in a rare interview, Google's most senior British executive seemed to see this as an opportunity.
There's an upside to traditional media moving to the digital world. You can reach 5 billion people within a couple of years on any device. You can use video if you come from the print industry and vice versa. So, you know, as yourself as a journalist, there's a huge ability to tell the important stories in new ways. And people are turning to the digital world more than ever before to understand the news.
For Facebook's young missionary founder, a short-term hit in revenues is worth it to allay accusations that it is becoming the anti-social network. Amal Rajan, BBC News.
It's hard to estimate the impact Facebook has had on politics and our lives. What finally did for Facebook's rampant domination, some might say enslavement of the media? Was it all the fake stuff, the political interference in the American election, or an increasing distaste about the mining and manipulation of the tiniest details of our online lives? Now Zuckerberg wants to take it back to a simple social network and slough off all the news feeds, the political propaganda and the viral diarrhea and make it all good for our well-being. But what brought on Mark Zuckerberg's decision to make Facebook a simpler, gentler world? Here's our technology editor, David Grossman.
In the whole history of the world, has any successful company ever said, "We want you to use our product less, do other things with your time"? Because, well, believe it or not, that is what Facebook is saying.
We also expect overall time spent on Facebook to go down, but our goal is that the time people do spend on Facebook will be better.
This is all about what Facebook shows us in our news feed. From now on, the company says it's going to downgrade professionally created content from businesses, brands and media organisations and upgrade personally created content from people we know, from real human beings in our network. In a post on Facebook last night, CEO Mark Zuckerberg said it's all about making sure that time on Facebook is an emotionally uplifting experience.
So we're in a really interesting space in the tech community right now, which is to say, how do we harness this addictive nature of the technologies that we've built, but to contribute to something that's going to be a net positive for an individual or for a society? We don't exactly know how to measure that yet. This is all a new and emerging space. But what today's announcement from Facebook symbolizes to me is that the senior management team is getting behind this and is trying to actually get ahead of a wave, a current of people thinking more carefully about how they're spending their time online.
It didn't take us long to find former Facebook users who've left the platform.
For me personally, the biggest thing was how angry it made me.
It's all a bit much. It's once you have, I suppose, the ability to broadcast every single detail of your life to everybody you know, you do.
If anybody is thinking about getting rid of Facebook, I can assure you that it is the best decision I ever made. It improves your mental health, it improves your social life, it improves your productivity.
But there's also a strong business case for Facebook showing us more of the personal stuff, like this, and less of the corporate stuff, like this. Because Facebook's value depends on what it knows about us and selling that information to advertisers. It's going to learn a lot less about us if we're just passively scrolling through professionally created content. It's going to learn a lot more about us if we're creating and sharing content of our own. But this could potentially have a huge impact on publishers of content like media organisations. Late last year, Facebook trialled a similar change to their ranking algorithm in 6 countries, including Guatemala.
When the Facebook experiment began, we saw a huge drop of traffic, from 30 to 60% drop. We saw again a huge drop since yesterday when they announced that they will prioritize content made by family and friends and de-emphasize content made by publishers. This will send a seismic blow throughout the market. It will affect tremendously, particularly young, innovative, independent news outlets.
In essence, Facebook is prioritising the future health of its brand and platform over the future health of the companies and organisations that have spent the past 5 years building their brands on Facebook. It's a big change for the company, and a big change potentially for how 2 billion people interact with the online world.
David Grossman. Well, joining me now is Peter Hennigan, Head of Communications at Lad Bible Group. I'm also with Catherine Becker, who's Chief Executive of the advertising agency VCCP Media, and Daria Kus, a psychologist specialising in internet usage at Nottingham Trent University. Good evening to you all. First of all, who's got most to win and most to lose out of this, Peter?
I would say the audience, obviously, is the big winner in this case. But we see that as a really good thing, because ultimately the audience is what makes Facebook. And as a publisher, we have a huge audience. So in our case, we've got 62 million followers across social on our different channels. And they see us as almost being like a friend, like a mate. So as a result, I think we will do well out of this as well.
But they'll find you, but you won't be so prominent.
I think publishers won't be so prominent. No. However, there will be still a lot of space for publishers, and publishers that do social in the right way, and Lad Bible are a really good example of how to do social in a good way.
And a variety of campaigns we can come on and talk about. But as far as advertising is concerned, when you heard the contributor from Guatemala saying there that a lot of the traffic was gone and it was problematic.
Yes. So again, I think there'll be winners and losers depending on how you operate with Facebook. We've seen a number of these algorithm changes in the past, and it's just about adapting and being fleet of foot and making sure that we're adapting to that new social, engaging environment.
But I mean, you obviously as an advertiser want to put a good spin on this, but the fact is that advertising's had a very good time on Facebook, because you've got a much bigger and quicker audience than you've ever had for television.
Yes.
And again, that is going to be separated out, isn't it? It's not going to be alongside, as it were, the family and friends.
There will still be advertising on there. I think the important thing is to have advertising that is socially engaging, that people adapt to and react to. So.
But do you think that by doing this, Zuckerberg has recognised that actually some of the content has a kind of pernicious effect.
Yes, and it's actually a short-term sort of pain to get long-term gain. And actually it's in the advertiser's best interest that it's an engaged platform that people are using a lot. It will make the advertising work harder, but it is about adapting to that and having companies like ours at VCP Media, where we're being fleet-of-foot and we're making sure that we make those changes.
Well, Derek, who's from the point of view, you know, you've looked at the impact of sustained online usage. And I wonder, do you think that Mark Zuckerberg really did quite seriously look at the impact on mental health that Facebook was having? I mean, that was one of the key drivers.
Well, when we consider the research that we've done at Nottingham Trent University into social media use and into the kind of mental health benefits or potential problems that excessive use can cause, then we would assume that, you know, the kinds of changes that are now being proposed appear to potentially lead to really beneficial results for the users. So on the one hand, what Mark Zuckerberg is trying to propose now is to use Facebook in a different way, to have a news feed that allows people to have more content from their family and friends, which potentially may indeed impact on their mental health and well-being positively. Because my research has actually showed that, you know, when we're using Facebook to connect with people around us, with our family, with our friends, then this may indeed impact on how we're feeling about ourselves, improve our mood, improve our mental health and well-being. And in addition to this, I think what I also need to add is that if we're looking into excessive use, which of course has been in the media quite a lot, and which is something that we have researched for a number of years now here at Nottingham Trent University, then we know that if people are using Facebook and other social networking sites excessively, this may indeed lead to detrimental impacts such as feelings of depression, anxiety, stress, and also addiction. And what we want to do is to try and counter this. And potentially the new movements with Facebook may now indeed provide a way into how to improve the situation and ensure that users are happier in actually engaging with Facebook.
But I wonder, Peter Hennigan, if that whole idea that it actually has to be interacting as opposed to passive viewing is something that you take on board when you're thinking about the content that you make for Lad Bible anyway. And do you recognise the problems that Daria is talking about?
Well, absolutely. The example I can give is social media, we asked our audience what was important to them, and they told us that the biggest issue for them was mental health. So we launched a campaign called You OK Mate, which allowed us to talk in a really relatable way to a millennial 18 to 34-year-old audience. And that was really impactful because we explained that, you know, 1 in 4 people will at some point in their life suffer from a mental health problem. It's not necessarily to do with Facebook, it's to do with just in general in life. And for the first time, a lot of people came back to us and they said to us, you know what, you allowed us to sit down with our mates down the pub and talk about mental health. And Facebook enabled us to do that. So although there is negativities within social media, there's also a lot of positivity, and we've experienced that with our work.
But there's still going to be the situation where people are going to be looking at their friends, seeing how much better they're doing in their lives than they are. I mean, there's still going to be that element of Facebook, isn't there?
Yes, you say that, but equally you have that outside of Facebook. You know, people will always look, and friends will have a better car, or they seem to be getting married earlier and so forth, and they will always look at that in a way and maybe feel uneasy about themselves. But ultimately, I don't believe that's necessarily the responsibility of Facebook.
This whole idea that David Grossman was talking about, actually, there's absolutely no use to Facebook if people are just scrolling through and not waiting. Absolutely. And presumably, that is what's happening in advertising too, and so you'll presumably be hoping that people will stick for longer on a page.
Absolutely, and the more engaged they are, we know the more effective the advertising can be because they're actually participating with that brand, they're having a conversation, and that advertising works harder. So that's something we've already been advising our clients to do.
But we know, of course, that Mark Zuckerberg isn't just in it as an altruist that actually wants to make money. So how is he going to make more money from this? Because you've got, as you say, you've got a lot of millennials. A lot of millennials are off Facebook, they're on Instagram, they're on other sites, and actually, how do you get them back?
Well, ultimately, there's two factors, because there's the 2 billion audience that he's got, which is a sort of finite audience, and he's sort of saturated that. So the other measure is the engagement and the length of time that they're on Facebook, and that's what he's encouraging to do. And if he's got more engagement...
Is that good for the human being to be on Facebook for longer?
Again, I think what's a positive thing about this press release is that it's talking about making people more engaged and therefore happy. So we want a more positive outcome, and that's a better platform for everyone.
Mark Zuckerberg was also influenced by the impact on children. What is good about Facebook if it is interactive and has children on for even longer than they're on at the moment? What is that good for mental health?
Well, I think when we're looking at children, where their brains are still developing, where their brains have still not matured, where there's still a considerable way they have to go until brains reach full maturity, we need to be very careful in terms of technology use. So I know that American pediatricians are now really speaking of limiting the use of technology, including Facebook, social media, etc., for children, particularly as of the age of 2, 3, 4 years, etc. And I think we really need to be very, very careful. Facebook is only allowed to be used by teenagers as of the age of 13, and I think this is for particular reasons. We need to be able to curb technology use to such an extent that the developing brain is not going to be negatively affected. And I don't think it's really a problem as long as we as parents, as teachers, are making children aware that there may be potential dangers associated with overuse, and that we are actually really very much aware of the benefits of social networking and social media use at the same time. So I think it's always very important to be able to see two sides of the coin, because otherwise we'd have a very limited and very one-sided discussion.
Well, very briefly, Peter, I mean, we talk about Mark Zuckerberg as if he's had this great epiphany and it's for the good of the people, but the truth of the matter is, if there had not been all the problems of fake news and the interference in the American elections, do you really think this would have happened?
I do think he's looked long and hard at this, and he realises that the audience is the key here. And he is making the decisions that what's best for the audience is ultimately best for Facebook.
Thank you all very much indeed.